Before the plow, before the pipeline, before the pixel, there was the given. A continent that breathed 600 million engineers in the waterways. Herds that darkened the horizon for days. And now, we measure the annihilation in megatons of carbon and call it progress. Listen to the silence of the vanished.
They've traded the bison for the barrel of the drill, a hecatomb of megafauna for transitory thrill. The beaver built a continent, the forest was a cathedral. Now we're drowning in the smoke of a pyre that's inextricable. The entropy of empire is a cacophony of greed, a necropolis of biomes where the commons bleed. We inverted the abundance into a scorched impermanence and called the holocaust of the living a reason of pretense. The paleoecological testimony of the past, where the plains were a savanna of herbivorous mass. 3 states with the bison in the thunderous procession, a keystone biomass that structured the succession. The riparian engineers in their hundreds of millions, hydrologists of the Holocene, the aquatic civilians. Now the deer are respected, the insects a memory of fractal extinction in a century of chicanery. We measure the loss in parts per million of VO2, a metonymy for murder that the oligarchs pursue. The forests that breathe the eons are now pyres in the night, a 7-year conflagration that obliterates the light. They've traded the bison for the barrel of the drill. A hecatomb of megafauna for a transitory thrill. The beaver built a continent, the forest was a cathedral. Now we're drowning in the smoke of a pyre that's inextricable. The entropy of empires, a cacophony of greed, a necropolis of biomes where the commons bleed. We inverted the abundance into a scorched impermanence and called the holocaust of the living a reasonable pretense. Diagnose the pathogenesis of this anthropogenic plague, where the petrochemical imperative makes the biosphere vague. The data centers proliferate, the pipelines traverse the sacred, while the thermal in circulation is permanently debased. The wars of the empire exacerbate the thermal event, a militarized apocalypse that the profiteers invent. 5 years of record heat in 120 millennia, a climatic anomaly that defies all scientific hygiene. The insects that pollinated the world are vanishing. Lack of biodiversity collapse at the plutocrat. Fact check with distract, we witness the unprecedented and call it the new normal. A tautological terror that the propagandists formal. The military budget is a colossus of absurdity, $1 trillion theater of geopolitical turbidity. 1% of its expenditure for a single solar cycle could abolish global famine with the bureaucratic prickle. But the weapons manufacture satisfies the solipsistic cartel, a necrophilic economy where the corpses are the cartel. The pipeline beams the tongue till the server sucks the power, while the forests incinerate in the apocalyptic hour. We know the trajectory, we see the empirical proof. A holistic diff catastrophe that dangles from the roof. But the praxis of the oligarchs is a denial of the real, a willful epistemology that refuses to feel. They traded the bison for the barrel of the drill. A hecatomb of megafauna for a transitory thrill. The beaver built a continent, the forest was a cathedral. Now we're drowning in the smoke of a pyre that's inextricable. The entropy of empires, a cacophony of greed, a necropolis of biomes where the commons bleed. We inverted the abundance into a scorched impermanence and called the holocaust of the living a reasonable pretense. A reasonable pretense. A reasonable pretense. They've traded the bison for the barrel of the drill. A hecatomb of megafauna for a transitory thrill. The beaver built a continent. The forest was a cathedral. A reasonable pretense. A reasonable pretense. The entropy of empire is a cacophony of greed, a necropolis of biomes where the commons bleed. We inverted the abundance into a scorched impermanence, a holocaust of the living a reasonable pretense. And call the holocaust
of the living a reasonable pretense. A reasonable pretense.